All right, welcome back. It is a terrific Tuesday here on Stop the Steal TV. We're trying to bring you all the things you need to know to keep your head up, to keep reaching for the stars, to go out there and do what you got to do to make things right for you and your family, regardless of who's president, regardless of who wins an election, regardless of what court cases are going on. You got a mission. Keep the faith, support the family, and fight for your freedom. And that's all you really have to focus on. You know, it's like when I get so mad and depressed sometimes when my football team, the New York Giants, loses a game. And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. Tomorrow I'm going to get up and I'm going to go to work and nothing's going to change. I don't gamble, so it's kind of something like that. But someone who's been in the trenches, he's been in the swamp, he's rolled up his sleeves and given service to his community like not many others. Bob Inglis joins us right now. He's a former congressman, Republican congressman from South Carolina. And Bob, it is your contention that while under Donald Trump we've really made great advances in becoming, free, independent, energy independence from the cartel, you think we still need to have people, educated, bright people from the fossil fuel industry involved in this transition for climate change and awareness. Is that right?
Yes, sure. The people that are in fossil fuel businesses, like ExxonMobil, for example, are very innovative people. I'm convinced that if John D. Rockefeller, who started Standard Oil and it ultimately became ExxonMobil years later, were still alive, if John D. were still with us, he wouldn't be so much into oil. He'd be into entrepreneurship. So oil was just something that he came upon that he could sell. But he'd probably be investing in other stuff, nuclear, better batteries, right now, because he'd see the incredible opportunity ahead of us.
Well, let me ask you this. When you talk about nuclear, are you talking about this as an alternative to fossil fuels? Are you in concert or in line with the thinking of some on the far left of the party that we have to completely eliminate fossil fuels, or just some of the thought leadership and entrepreneurism that the early fossil fuel leaders brought to new and inventive ways to clean up our planet?
Well, if we want to reduce emissions, we need nuclear power. The reality is that you can't power New York City or Mumbai or Beijing with solar and wind. You can do a lot with those, especially if you back them up with batteries. And if I were heavily invested in natural gas, I'd be a little bit worried about the battery taking my place ultimately, because right now natural gas is the backup for that intermittency. But ultimately, those batteries, if they get better and cheaper, will replace me if I'm in natural gas. But still, through it all, in big cities and in heavy industry, we need an awful lot of power, and that's really going to come from nuclear. And the exciting thing is, John, that some on the left realize that now. It's sort of like the new talking points are being distributed, some on the left, about, if you really want to deal with climate change, build nuclear and build them fast.
Wow. So I know this was like a hot commodity years ago, and then it kind of died off. I don't know if it was, Chernobyl, and there was another, the Love Canal, I guess, and these were like highly publicized breakdowns of nuclear facilities. Do you think there have been technological advances since then that could change the public opinion of nuclear?
Yeah, I really do. In Fukushima, you got to add them to the list. There was the event that was unanticipated. It didn't blow up, but it did have some problems. Well, all of that caused some pretty crazy thinking, frankly, after it happened, with Europe, for example, shutting down some of their nuclear power plants and going back to coal. Well, if you do that, you're going to emit an awful lot of CO2. So I think what we've got to come to is the realization that every fuel has its downsides in a fallen world. It's just the reality. And so you got to deal with them. And the one you got to deal with nuclear is you got to deal with the waste. Well, it can be dealt with, and if we do it right, we might just invent the new kind of reactors. The one that there's an interesting guy from the left doing this. Bill Gates was working in China because he was afraid he couldn't get it permitted here on a nuclear power plant that would essentially use waste and get the last little bit of energy out of the waste that's currently stored on site at a lot of nuclear plants here in America. And so we could develop that new technology, or a different way to go, John, would be small modular nukes. And I'm particularly excited about those because those can sort of come off the end of an assembly line. They can be standardized, so you don't have to build these gargantuan power plants that are tailor-made. You can have small modular nukes that can power a city.
Well, let me ask you this. I understand all this stuff, right? I kind of do. Not as great as you, Congressman, and God bless you for giving your time and effort for our country. But the thing I don't understand is this. I kind of, I do a lot of football references, and I always used to feel like if I call a play, the first play of the game, and it goes for over 4 yards, the next play I'm just going to call it again. You know what I mean? And my father was kind of, run it until something's broke, and it was kind of, until they adjust, keep doing what you're doing. And I feel like we fought for a long time for America to get to a place of, energy independence from the cartels of the Middle East. And we've got there with a lot of technological advances, including fracking, right? To get fossil fuels out of the ground in cleaner, safer ways. But there's still, obviously, problems. Why not stick with what's working for us right now? I mean, is the threat to the planet so great right now that we should get off the course of being energy independent?
I think there are two reasons. One is a threat and an opportunity. Yes, the threat is there. That's what I learned on the science committee. I spent 6 years in Congress saying climate change is nonsense. I didn't know anything about it except that Al Gore was for it. And that was the end of the inquiry for me. Okay, so I admit that's sort of ignorant, but that's the way it was for my first 6 years in Congress. And then I went to Antarctica, saw the evidence in the ice core drillings in my second tour in Congress. And then some other experiences caused me to see that, yes, it's a threat, but it's also this incredible opportunity. And I hear what you're saying about running the 4-yard play over and over, but if the coaching staff on the other side of the field sees you doing that, I mean, they're going to start lining up against that play, and so the opportunity we could miss then is to get the ball in the air, if you will, by, for example, beating China to electrifying the fleet. And so when the CEO of General Motors said this week that Mary Barra said that, they want to own the electric car business, that's an incredible opportunity.
But all right, I want to just drill into that, pun intended. You're talking about, maybe the other team is going to stack up and we lose the opportunity to put the ball in the air. One of my mentors, Dr. Patrick Byrne, used to say to me all the time, Johnny T, if we got to put the ball in the air, 3 things can happen, and 2 of them ain't good. You know what I'm saying? So, and I think, a real life example of that was Pete Carroll in the Super Bowl, right? You're at the 1-yard line, you got Marshawn Lynch, the beast in the backfield, and you try to put the ball in the air, and we all know what happened there. So, again, I'll just come back to, why not use all that entrepreneurship and all that technology and all the learned, educated folks we have here and get us cleaner at the play that's working, energy independence from domestic sources, and then explore these things on a smaller pro rata basis as they're practical?
Well, if you go back to that threat, what you'd say is, no, the threat's really pretty imminent. So you want to be innovating, but the way to innovate is to make sure to unleash the power of free enterprise to do it. Right now, what we do, I could see what you're talking about. If, for example, you made me coal-fired electricity, fully accountable for all of my costs. Right now, I get away with socializing my soot
Got it.
and my CO2. It's a pretty
Got
good
it.
deal for me.
All
But
right.
if you put that cost on me and I'm accountable for it, then other forms of energy start beating me, not because of government regulations,
All right.
but just because of basic accountability.
Congressman, we got to leave it there. Thank you so much. Appreciate the spirited debate. Very informative, and we got to have you back. Thank you very much.
Good to be with you.
Bob Inglis, Congressman from South Carolina. Quick break. Wrap up Liquid Lunch right after this.